In a fiery moment that shook the room, a bold challenge was thrown across the table, confident, sharp, and clearly meant to make a statement. But what happened next? No one saw it coming. The silence was brief, and then came a clapback, so swift it flipped the entire exchange on its head. What started as a confident move turned into something far more revealing. Want to know how it all unfolded, and who really took control? Keep watching, because this is one moment you won't forget. A public exchange between two political voices recently caught the attention of many. It wasn't just another debate. It was a moment where words, timing, and the energy in the room all came together to create something bigger than expected. One individual, aiming to make a strong point, decided to challenge her opponent during a televised segment. The goal seemed clear: to take control of the conversation and present her views with confidence. However, what followed turned the spotlight in a very different direction. The interaction began in a typical way for a public political discussion. The atmosphere was tense but respectful, as expected in high-stakes media settings. When one figure raised a pointed critique, it was clear that she intended to put her opponent on the defensive. This kind of moment is common in political arenas, where individuals often try to gain the upper hand by questioning the credibility, intentions, or ideas of the person on the other side. The setting provided the perfect platform for such a challenge: visible, amplified, and recorded. What made this moment stand out was not just the challenge itself, but what happened immediately after. In many political back and forths, responses can be delayed, carefully measured, or overly scripted. But in this case, the reply came with speed, strength, and clarity. It was more than just a response. It was a direct stand that shifted the entire energy of the conversation. The challenger seemed caught off guard by the power of the comeback, and suddenly, the narrative began to change, right in front of everyone watching. In these kinds of exchanges, preparation and awareness play a huge role. The person who initiated the challenge might have expected a different kind of reply, perhaps something more subdued or cautious. Instead, what was received was firm, unapologetic, and even commanding. This kind of real-time communication in public view puts both parties under pressure, and how they respond can reveal a lot about their presence, mindset, and experience in handling tough moments. What makes this type of public interaction educational is how clearly it shows the unpredictability of live political debate. It teaches the importance of staying composed, being prepared, and thinking on your feet. It also shows the risk involved in trying to control a moment without fully considering how the other side might respond. In a debate, especially one that's being broadcasted, every word counts and timing is everything. A single misstep can open the door for the other side to take control of the narrative. This event also highlighted the way such exchanges extend beyond the room in which they happen. Because the interaction occurred during a broadcast, it was captured in full. It was clipped, replayed, and shared across social media platforms. Viewers could watch it over and over, analyze the facial expressions, the tone, the body language, and the words used. The moment became more than a debate, it became content. And once something becomes content in today's media-driven world, it starts to carry weight far beyond the initial discussion. People began forming opinions not just about the issue at hand, but about the individuals themselves. Audiences praised the calmness and strength shown in the response. They admired how the tone shifted from being challenged to taking control. Meanwhile, the challenger's original intent seemed to get lost in the reaction that followed. Instead of leading the conversation, she became part of a moment she did not fully anticipate, and that shift had lasting effects on how both were perceived. It's also important to look at the broader context of why this kind of moment matters. In politics, how one handles pressure, confrontation, and surprise tells the public a lot about their leadership qualities. People want to see who can stay grounded, who can think quickly, and who can turn a challenge into an opportunity. These public settings act like open classrooms where lessons are happening in real time. The audience learns by watching how leaders react, not only to policy discussions but to interpersonal moments that test their composure and clarity. This exchange is a strong example of how a planned challenge can turn into a defining moment, not just for the person who launched it, but for the one who responded. It demonstrates the importance of being prepared not only to speak but to listen, to stay grounded, and to defend a position without losing poise. It also shows that trying to take command of a conversation comes with the risk of being surprised by an even stronger reply. Moments like this remind us that in the world of public dialogue, the way something is said can be just as powerful as what is said. During a live political exchange, one figure took a bold step by challenging her opponent. Directly, the move was sharp and confident, likely designed to unsettle or shake the other side. In political conversations, especially those aired in front of a national audience, it's common for speakers to use strong language or take an aggressive tone to try and take control of the discussion. That seemed to be the plan here. The challenger appeared ready to dominate the moment and possibly weaken her opponent's image, but what happened next changed the direction of the entire event. The person on the receiving end of the challenge was not shaken. Instead, she came back with a firm, confident, and well-placed response. It wasn't just a simple reply. It was a full, direct clapback that showed strength, preparation, and composure. Rather than becoming defensive, she took the energy of the moment and turned it around. That kind of reaction doesn't happen by accident. It often comes from a deep understanding of the topic, strong communication skills, and confidence built through experience. This response took many by surprise. In confrontational discussions, the expected reaction is often a moment of silence, hesitation, or nervous explanation. But this was different. The person being challenged didn't pause or struggle for words. She was ready. Her tone was calm but firm. Her words were clear, sharp, and on point. Instead of letting the challenger lead the moment, she took it into her own hands and set the tone moving forward. The idea of being ready for the clapback is more than just having a smart answer. It means having the emotional control to respond with impact, not just with anger. It means staying focused under pressure and using the moment to highlight one's own position. That's what made this particular moment stand out. The person who responded didn't just defend herself. She made a new point, drew attention to her stance, and shifted the balance of the conversation. It was no longer about the challenge. It became about the powerful way the challenge was handled. This kind of readiness comes from more than just knowing facts. It comes from mental strength and the ability to stay centered even when the conversation turns heated. Many people can speak well when they are in control, but few can remain strong when they are suddenly attacked or questioned in a harsh way. In this case, the response showed that preparation isn't only about what to say, but about how to say it when it matters most. The reaction was not emotional or scattered. It was focused, bold, and effective. It's also a good lesson in how to handle confrontation in public life. When someone tries to control the story or push another into a corner, the response will shape what comes next. A weak reply allows the challenger to continue, but a strong, direct reply stops the attack and makes people pay attention. That's exactly what happened. The challenger seemed caught off guard, and the power of the moment shifted away from her. Instead of putting her opponent on defense, she now had to deal with the reaction that followed. The confidence shown in that moment didn't just defend a position, it inspired others watching. It became a reminder that challenges are not always a threat. They can be an opportunity. When handled with strength and focus, a challenge can be turned into a message. That's what made this moment educational. It wasn't just about who said what. It was about how a situation changed simply because one person was prepared, composed, and unwilling to be pushed off course. This kind of communication is important in politics, but also in everyday life. It teaches how to respond when someone puts you on the spot. It teaches that preparation, clarity, and inner calm are more powerful than shouting or reacting out of anger. A strong message is best delivered with clarity and control, especially when someone tries to stir conflict. The key takeaway here is that being challenged isn't always a bad thing. It can be the very moment when someone's real strength becomes visible. The person who delivered the clapback didn't ask for the confrontation, but she made the most of it. Her response didn't just stop the challenge, it became the highlight of the exchange. And in the end, it was not the challenge that people remembered, but the power and impact of the response that followed. When a bold exchange takes place in a public space, especially in the political world, its effect often goes far beyond the room where it happens. That's exactly what occurred in this situation. A challenge was thrown during a televised or widely shared appearance, and the reaction to it spread quickly. What made it even more interesting was that the person who was being challenged didn't just respond. They responded in a way that struck a chord with people watching. Their comeback had strength, personality, and perfect timing. Because of that, the moment didn't stay contained, it went viral. Once something goes viral, it becomes more than just a moment. It turns into a message, a symbol, or even a movement. This is what happened here. The response was so impactful that people started clipping and sharing the video online. Social media platforms were flooded with short videos, quotes, and reactions. People began using the phrases said during the response as hashtags, captions, and comments. It created an online wave that kept growing hour by hour. There's a reason why this kind of moment spreads so fast. It touches something real in the audience. People like to see someone standing strong, especially when they are being confronted. It gives a sense of justice or fairness. It also makes the viewers feel like they are witnessing something powerful, something that reflects courage and quick thinking. In this case, the person who delivered the clapback became the center of attention because of how effectively they turned the situation around. That kind of public reaction doesn't happen with just any argument or response. It takes a certain kind of energy. The timing must be right. The tone must be sharp but not disrespectful. The message has to be clear, yet clever. And most of all, it has to feel natural and not forced. All of those things came together in this case. That's why the internet didn't just watch. It engaged, discussed, and amplified the moment. News outlets also started covering the story. Articles appeared analyzing what was said, why it mattered, and how people were responding. This added another level of visibility. Now, the moment was not only popular online but was also being talked about in formal discussions, opinion pieces, and political commentary. What began as a simple challenge became a national topic. People weren't only discussing the issue at the center of the exchange. They were talking about how the situation was handled, how the tone shifted, and what it said about the person who responded. In politics, these viral moments are important because they can shape how the public sees someone. When a person handles a challenge with grace, intelligence, and strength, people remember that. They start to associate those qualities with the person involved. That can help build trust, support, and attention. For many public figures, going viral in the right way can be a major step forward. It's also important to understand the educational side of going viral. In today's world, digital presence matters as much as what someone says in a live room. If a strong moment happens but no one sees it online, its impact is limited. But if a moment is captured and shared, it has the power to reach millions of people. It can influence minds, spark conversations, and even change public opinion. This incident showed how one well-delivered response can start a digital movement. People were not just reposting the video. They were adding their own thoughts, sharing how it made them feel, and even relating it to their personal lives or experiences. It turned into a bigger conversation about power, readiness, and the importance of standing firm when under pressure. In many ways, the original challenge became less important than the way it was answered. The focus shifted entirely. When a moment like this becomes viral, it also becomes a tool. It can be used in campaigns, speeches, or even as part of personal branding. People remember it, they quote it, they bring it up in future discussions. That's the lasting power of viral energy. It doesn't fade quickly. It becomes part of how someone is viewed and talked about. What made this specific situation unique was that the viral moment wasn't based on a mistake, a scandal, or a joke. It was based on strength and clarity in a high-pressure situation. That gave it a kind of respect that not all viral events have. It wasn't just entertaining. It was empowering for many people watching. And because of that, it left a real and lasting impression on those who saw it unfold. Moments of public debate often become more than just a discussion of ideas. They reveal character, test confidence, and show how people act when they're under pressure. In this situation, The way someone handled a challenge on a national platform spoke volumes. What stood out wasn't just the words used in response, but the deep confidence behind them. It was a confidence that couldn't be faked or forced. It came from within, steady, controlled, and completely sure of its own position. That kind of presence can't be overlooked, especially when the eyes of the public are watching. The exchange began with a direct challenge, an attempt to shake the other person, catch them off guard, or throw them off balance. But instead of folding or becoming defensive, the response came with a calm strength. The voice didn't shake. The posture didn't change. The reply was smooth, firm, and direct. That kind of composure in the middle of a heated moment says more than any prepared statement ever could. It shows self-control, awareness, and belief in one's position without needing to shout or argue. Many times, when people face a sudden confrontation, especially one that feels personal or intense, they react with emotion. They might speak too quickly, raise their voice, or try to match the energy of the person confronting them. But that's not what happened here. Instead, the tone remained steady. The message stayed focused. There was no panic, no stumble, no attempt to rush the reply. It was clear from the way the response was given that this wasn't the first time dealing with pressure, and it probably wouldn't be the last. What this moment teaches is the real meaning of confidence. Confidence isn't about being loud or overpowering others. It's about standing your ground even when the situation becomes uncomfortable. It's about knowing your value, knowing your message, and not letting someone else's tone or tactics control the moment. The clapback, as many began calling it, wasn't just a clever comeback. It was a well-placed answer that came from a place of strength. This kind of moment also shows how public speaking is more than just about what is said. It's about body language, eye contact, and the ability to stay calm under stress. Every part of the response showed that the speaker was in control, not just of the words, but of the moment itself. And when someone is able to do that in front of cameras, microphones, and a live audience, it leaves a deep impression on the viewers. It makes people listen more closely and take the person more seriously. There's something powerful about being unshaken during a challenge. It gives others the confidence to trust in what you're saying. It shows that your beliefs aren't just surface-level opinions, they're deeply rooted. And that kind of grounded strength builds credibility. It turns a political figure into a leader, a voice into a force. That's exactly what made this exchange so memorable. The challenge was strong, but the response was stronger. Not because it was louder, but because it was calm and solid. The moment also offered a lesson for others in public life or leadership roles. It showed that sometimes the best way to handle pressure is not by fighting back with the same energy, but by staying steady. When someone tries to rattle you, the best way to win is by refusing to be rattled. Holding your ground with quiet power often speaks louder than shouting. That's what made the moment so striking. The challenger had aimed to take the spotlight, but the response took the room. Confidence like this doesn't come overnight. It comes from experience, preparation, and self-belief. It comes from facing similar moments in the past and learning how to stay centered. It also comes from knowing your message well enough that no outside pressure can cause you to lose focus. In the world of politics, that kind of presence is rare, and when it shows up, people notice. What started as a planned attack or criticism turned into something else entirely. It turned into a demonstration of unshakable control. The challenger, expecting to take the lead in the moment, ended up watching as the person they confronted calmly took control instead. The shift was clear. The power of the room had moved. The audience, whether in the studio or watching online, could feel it. Moments like this are a reminder that real power often doesn't need to announce itself. It just shows up, stays still, and speaks with purpose. When others try to disrupt it, it doesn't run. It holds firm. And when that kind of confidence is put on display, especially in front of a wide audience, it becomes more than a moment. It becomes a lesson in leadership, presence, and how to own the room without having to raise your voice. Public moments of conflict often serve as powerful examples of deeper lessons, especially in the world of politics. What begins as a heated exchange can quickly reveal which individuals truly understand their values and which ones are simply trying to gain attention. In this particular situation, one person stepped forward with a loud challenge, perhaps expecting to win the moment with confidence and control. But what they received in return was not silence or retreat. It was a sharp and unexpected response that completely changed the energy of the room. That single moment became a strong reminder of why it's important to be fully prepared, especially when entering a public conversation. Preparation is not just about memorizing facts or having a few phrases ready. It's about truly understanding the subject matter and being mentally and emotionally ready to handle pressure. It involves knowing how to think on your feet, how to keep calm even when someone is trying to provoke you, and how to control your tone so your message is clear and strong. In this event, the person who responded to the challenge did all of that. While the challenger may have expected to dominate the conversation, the actual outcome was very different. The moment ended up highlighting the importance of depth over volume. The person who answered the challenge wasn't just reacting. They were thinking, listening, and speaking with purpose. They didn't rush or fumble for words. Instead, they gave a response that was not only powerful, but also very specific and thoughtful. That kind of answer only comes from someone who takes the time to understand the bigger picture and isn't just there to make noise. It's the difference between being reactive and being grounded, and in politics that difference is everything. Many people watching may not have known all the background information, but they could feel the energy shift. They could tell who was prepared and who was not. The audience noticed which person had the facts and which one was just trying to grab attention. That's because true understanding shines through, especially when pressure is high. You can't fake calmness, focus, or knowledge. Those qualities come from hard work and clear thinking. This moment also serves as a lesson in leadership. A leader doesn't need to be loud to be heard. A leader speaks with clarity and stands by their words, especially when being tested. In this case, the person who responded wasn't looking to win the argument with emotion. Instead, they won with facts, with tone, and with a quiet kind of strength that made people sit up and listen. The person who had challenged them didn't seem ready for that kind of reply. The loud challenge had no power against a well-delivered truth. In public communication, being unprepared often leads to embarrassment. A person may start with confidence but quickly lose it when the reply comes back stronger than expected. That's what happened in this case. One person entered the moment trying to challenge authority or control the topic, but they were not ready for what came next. The situation flipped almost instantly, and as the audience watched it unfold, the real lesson became clear. Know what you're talking about, and be ready for the response you might get. It's also worth noting that attention alone isn't the same as respect. Someone can make headlines by being loud or bold, but respect comes from consistency, knowledge, and the ability to stay composed. That's why the person who gave the comeback received so much support afterward. Their answer was seen as genuine and firm. People respected the way they held their ground and used their words to shift the entire conversation. In the long run, moments like this become more than just viral clips. They become examples of what it means to be prepared and professional. They show how to deal with pressure, how to push back with strength but without losing control, and how to stay true to your message even when someone tries to challenge you. Those are valuable skills not just in politics, but in any public or professional setting. Being prepared means you don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to rely on dramatic statements or sudden attacks. You let your words, your knowledge, and your calm presence do the work. And when someone tries to throw you off, you respond in a way that reminds everyone watching who truly understands the topic and who does not. That is the real difference between showing up and standing out.